officer at Project Management Unit, and he's been one of the individuals who was associated with this scheme right from its inception. So there will be no one better than him to talk about this scheme. So sir, please.
Thanks, Devin sir. Good morning to all of you. So I have seen most of you all in the interviews, so I can look at the faces which are familiar. You already had a session where Robotics sir has briefed you about the components of the scheme, your roles, right? So what I would like to speak is what matters when actually you are going to be these fellows, right? So the mindset that we had when we thought about having somebody called as fellows as a part of this scheme. So there was a clear gap that we saw in the terms of imagining that a student wants to acquire a particular skill which makes him ready for this current scenario, which is very challenging, right? Because the world is progressing very fast. The demands are demanding. You must have seen it in your job life now. After you graduated, when you go to a job, you must be filling the gap between what you learned and what you are supposed to be knowing when you go for a job. That gap is clearly evident. Somebody has to act on it. And this scheme tries to fill that gap in terms of making the child able to solve a problem. That's what we do, right? In every job that we do, we're solving problems every day. Somebody's problem we are solving. Some company is hired to solve somebody else's problem. That's what we do. So how do we make a child equipped to solve the problem? For that, the child has to have certain set of skills, certain set of thinking, and that to happen, there has to be an environment which is conducive for that to happen. That's what the school is supposed to do. But then you have seen there is a gap in what is being taught and what is required to be taught. So can we have somebody beyond the system doing that role? That's where you come in, you as fellows. Because you are from the industry, supposed to be industry, which are not teachers per se, career teachers. Now what happens with teachers is they have a limitation in terms of what the syllabus defines, their job roles, their timings. So there are a lot of limitations. Right? It's not that they do not want to do, but there are a lot of constraints in which they work. So can we have somebody who is not bound by the constraints, trying to bridge the gap? That's going to come in. Now what is this gap? As I told you, the gap is between how can a child be equipped to solve a problem. Right? For that to solve a problem, now where does this coding and robotics come in? Why do a child need to learn coding, or why should he acquire a skill in robotics? Does it make sense? We could say that, let's take that this word, coding and robotics, is just a term to be used because it's a catchy phrase these days. We have seen that somebody like White Hat, all these big companies are using this term to make millions. Why? Because there is a gap evident in the minds of the parents that if they have this skill, my child has this skill, maybe he's employed in a better position. So let's assume that this word is just that catchy phrase for parents and the stakeholders who otherwise would not know what computational thinking is. Imagine if we had to define this scheme as computational thinking and critical thinking. Nobody would understand, right? They would have asked us, what is this you're talking about? So for people to know, we have used this word which are catchy. But for us, the ones who are implementing the scheme, we have to know the purpose behind implementing the scheme. The purpose in equipping the child to have this problem-solving attitude, for which there are certain skills that they need to acquire, something like coding, which tells them how to break down a larger problem into simpler problems. Anyway, we'll try to acquire those skills in the next 5 days, and we have many resource persons for that. I would just try to walk you through what would be those steps, right? Just try to give you an overview. Maybe by the end of 5 days, again we'll try to see whether we are understanding this point. By the way, I completely agree, it will not be easy for you. You just come into this environment, you're trying to fathom what is happening here. What is this coding, what is this robotics, what is this schools. Some of you are teachers, it will be easy for you. For most of us, it may not be easy to comprehend what is happening. So let's take it easy. It's not easy, we have been doing it for almost 1.5 years with school teachers and we find the gap still there. So it's not going to be easy. So let's try and understand what this is. The first point that I would like to make is so what matters? So now we are all here, approximately 50 of us. TFGs who are going to go out into the schools, and we are here as a team. Now, when we talk about a team, let's talk even the school, right? School also there's a team of teachers, managers, administrators. This job of this team is supposed to elevate the student to have this critical thinking or problem solving mindset. That's a team. Here you are a team. So we are all working in a team. Now why do you think, do we work in a team or do we collaborate? Any suggestions? Why do we need to collaborate? Or do we need to collaborate first of all? Does the school team need to collaborate? Why do you think we should collaborate? Any suggestions on why should we collaborate? Or what is collaboration for the matter of fact? Yes, any suggestions? Let's make it interactive. I am not here to give you Gyan, just walking through a few steps. Why? What do you think is collaboration? Or why should we have collaboration? Like one single person doesn't have all the skill set. Anything else?
Bridge out the gaps.
Different ideas, yes.
Bridge out the gaps.
Which are the gap between?
For school
Okay.
and CDP.
No, how does the team work in the gap? What is the role of the team? Can I as an individual do it? I'm a teacher in a school teacher, I'm just teaching science. Or you as a teacher teaching coding and robotics. What is your role there as a team there? You're an individual, you're doing a job. You have a lesson plans to complete, you're completing a lesson plan. That's your job. You're paid to do that. Now do you need a team? Do you need to collaborate? And why do you need to collaborate?
Multiple resources. Multiple resources.
Multiple resources. See, everybody in the school, somebody is given science, somebody is given math, somebody is given English. Everybody has been divided into their job roles. They're all doing their jobs. Assume they're all doing it perfectly. Let's take an assumption. I'm a math teacher, I'm very sincere, I'm doing my job sincerely. Every teacher is doing their job sincerely. So what is the need of collaboration?
Coding and robotics can be...
Let's not take coding and robotics. Again, let's not get into terms. Those terms will confuse us. Let's assume a school environment. All teachers are doing their jobs perfectly fine. Do we still need collaboration?
Yes, sir. Because every students are perfect in different skills.
Okay.
Some are good in theoretical part, some are good in maths, some are good in science. Okay.
Yes.
So to communicate this, one student who is not good in the maths might be good in a logical designing using Scratch. So we need to communicate this so that they can see, meaning they can they should know that he is not good in maths or science, but he is good in some other category.
Interesting. So you are saying the child might be good in something, but as an individual teacher, I would not know what is he good in. Some other teacher might know. Okay, interesting. Do you think this actually happens? Did it happen in the school? Did it happen in your childhood as a school student?
So
Let's only ask ourselves. We all have been just 10 years ago, 15 years ago in the same school. Did it happen in our times? Did my teacher out of the blue and come say, hey, my teacher told me I'm good at maths or bad at maths? Did it ever happen? It happened for sports? Okay, interesting. Good perspective, it happened for sports. Yes. Okay. No, you are correct. What I am saying is, as a team, did the school team collaborate? Or did the team work together to achieve something? If you think collaboration makes sense, did your teachers in your school collaborate to add value to you? I know they did, everybody did their wonderful job. Everybody taught you well. That's why you are here. So if they all taught you well, did they collaborate? Did they find gaps in you? Did any teacher walk up to you and say, hey, that teacher told me this? Or did the teachers speak among themselves and figure out if this child has a problem in maths, could I address that problem somewhere else? So you see that gap, right? So what do you think collaboration now is? And does it add value to you as a team for sitting here? So what will you do then? I will not give you answers. I am just putting these questions to you for the next 5 days. Think over it. Because if you feel that when you were in school 15 years ago, nobody asked you, now do you think it adds value for you all to be thinking in those lines. And what is that we should be thinking about? What is that collaboration? Is it working together? The school teachers work together. Right? They all sit in the staff room. During recess, they all talk to each other. They do talk about students. They do talk about the fact that the boy was noisy, and the other teacher will say, yeah, he was noisy. So they do talk about the students. So what is collaboration? Is working together collaboration? And why do we need collaboration? These two questions I would give away. I will not give answers because these are something which I don't have answer for. Because I also was a student some years ago. I do not know, but I know that if you collaborate, it would help you. Now what is it that would help you? Bring out the best in the child. But how do you know what is the best for the child? And who would decide what is the best for the child? The school teacher decides, the parent decides, or you as a teacher decide? Who decides? And how would you know that the child wants it? That the child loves to code or the child loves to write poetry? So the difference is between doing it together or making it happen together. That's a difference. Because the schools traditionally do it together. And they all do it in a team. But are they making it happen together? That's the difference. Doing certainly they are. But are they making it happen? Are they adding value to the child beyond what they're supposed to do? Is the question. Okay. Let's go to the next point. So what I'm trying to say from this image is, do we observe what is happening around us? So what I mean here is, if we are curious to observe what is happening around us, if we can, do we encourage this thought process in the student? Why I'm asking this because typically what we do is, in any class when we enter, teachers will understand this, those who are not teachers will not. They have a lesson at hand. They just go to the blackboard, or now we have PPTs, put the lesson plan up, and you start the deliverable for that day. It was clear, right? 30 weeks we have in a year, 30 lesson plans, the first plan I'm supposed to finish today. So I put up my PPT, or I do a practical, or I do the ideal method of teaching. I do it. But in that process, am I encouraging the child to look or to observe? Is the child developing certain skill to pick that question? Or first of all, do I have that intent to observe? Am I observing things around me? And what am I observing? So when I'm saying what am I observing, so let's take this example. This is a fern. Now this fern can be viewed in different ways by different people. That observation will be based on your own thought processes. If you are from biology, you would say it is a fern which has I think reticulate venation, and you get into the biology of it. If you are somebody from maybe from a literature background, you would say it's very beautiful, it looks nice green, I've seen it in the forest around me. If somebody from math background, you would say, oh, it's a nice pattern, it has branches, right? If you would observe something, this, right? It's one line, the same line repeating. Now, this is what I meant by observation. Like the observation could be multiple. Now, are we ourselves having this power of observation? To observe something like this? I do not say this is the only way of looking at it, but I'm saying this is one way of looking at it, in depth. That same one, now if you put lines, is this. Now if you go further depth into it, you can do into fractals, and you can do mathematics into it. Right? It's not end to how much depth you can go into. That's what I had at 90 class. You can peer into that. Now, is this something which should we have? And if we feel we should have it, how do now I make the student or the child who is going to study under me, whom I am going to facilitate, have this power of observation? I understand. I think you assume you can you can understand the importance of power of observation. If you understand the importance of observation, then I think you will understand why am I saying this. Now, let me ask you about this pattern. Right? Assume this is a pattern. Now, tell me what you observe here. Just random. It is a pentagon. More. Symmetrical. Drawn in chalk. Okay, I am talking about all 5 lines are drawn in chalk. What other patterns do you find?
Dots packed close together. Dots packed close together.
Dots placed close together. Yes. Okay. What else? Now let's assume you are 6th, 7th standard, 8th standard children here. What would those children be thinking when they say this?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Okay. Cupcake. Okay. Anything else? Because you would ask this question eventually. In a month's time, you would be going to a class asking the same question to a child and you'll be expecting some answer from them. So I am taking the same question to you now.
Similar to the front view of the house.
Similar to the front view of the house, okay? Football. Okay, yeah, football patches I think on the ball, yeah. That's how they are seen. Interesting. A student would come up with such answers. They would come up with more answers than what you all have given me now. So now let's switch the roles. Okay? I have asked you to imagine as a child. Now I'll ask you to imagine as a TFG fellow who after 1 month is going to a class and this is there in one lesson plan. Okay? It is there by the way in the lesson plan. And you are now going to ask this question to the same 50 students sitting in your class. And what do you expect they should answer? Close figure, okay. I think about geometry. Okay, and I think spell it out about geometry. Okay, we are still talking terms. See, this is what makes us, right? We are all compartmentalized. Our knowledge is math, geometry, science, biology. It is not knowledge. It's all in compartments. What else? Angles, sides, lines. What else? Any commonalities? You find some commons? Are there angles? Angles common? You would ask, this is what we like to teach a student, right? If the angles are same. And by the way, this was taught by a maths teacher in the class. Right? Typically, this is what happens. Chop hello, order galen. Bugano, fanga, taja angle kikke. Mati gatari 360 divided by. Okay, my take answer at the class problem. I'm saying class problem. Now we do not know what patterns we can see here. But in 1 month, we will be working on the same pattern. And triggering that imagine of the child to think beyond what was taught in that class. Because for him, upon pentagon challenge together software, matter over. For us also, we learned that in our school, matter over, chapter closed. We just closed ourselves to that thought process. So, for me, the biggest challenge is getting you all to get that enthusiasm in observing patterns, observing this. The moment you have that joy in you, it will translate into what when you go to a classroom. If you do not have that joy, it will not translate. You will be like that math teacher who teaches geometry in the class. And it will be the same repetition of what is happening in every school today. You will be doing the same thing. You will go, but with little more technology in hand. Teacher is to go with chalk, you will go with a laptop, with a projector, with a screen in front of him, maybe a robot in their hand. You are only adding tools around you. Actually, you are complicating. But if you do not have that joy in you, that you have found some pattern here in this That you found that there are 5 equal lines, the angles are same. Now, if I make it if that is the shape, is it similar or is it different? Now what's the difference between this and that? Is there a difference? Why is there a difference? Are we asking so many whys? Do we have time for whys in the classroom? Have you ever seen a teacher asking you why? So why? So again, when we say problem solving, it comes from why. If you do not have this why in your mind, if the child does not ask you, sir, कित्याक, आठ कित्याक न्ही, 60 डिग्री कित्याक, 80 कित्याक न्ही, equal कित्याक, unequal केल्यार कितें जातलें? Do the teacher have a time to answer this in a normal classroom? You obviously know the answer. So naturally what we do is, ते घराकडे कर, मागीर apply करून मेळ. बरोबर? Because teacher cannot be blamed here. There is no blame game here. It is a constraint of the environment. So traditionally this is what happens in every classroom. So can we make this continue happen in our classrooms? If not, then do we have answers for such questions? Or what if the child gets up and says, sir, हे 80 कित्याक, 60 कित्याक न्ही, हे मातशें वाडोवन पळोवया न्ही. Would you do the same thing? म्हाका lesson plan बहुत आसा. म्हाका complete करपा जाय question. So would you be the same math teacher again? If you are not the same math teacher, what will you be then? Are you that excited now to find patterns in this? Now, would you ask a child, the table is there in every child's room, right? You're sitting on a table. Now, if you ask this question typically, you want to create that curiosity in a child. You question that, right? So you would say, we'll put a table aside. Now, what does this table consist of? You tell me. If you ask this question to a child in a classroom, what will the child say? What do you want the child to say to you? What would be your question? What are you expecting from the child to say now? It's made about different patterns. Very good. What else?
It has 4 legs.
It has 4 legs. Very good.
The top is a rectangle.
Top is a rectangle. Very good. It's wooden. Very good. Right, so when you ask this, when you're expecting this, when you have this curiosity in you to find patterns in every object around you, and not only in the classroom, now you're taking the classroom out of the classroom and into what their daily life is. So relating that to their everyday objects. There will be that mouse in his hand. Now what is that shape of a mouse? Why is it that shape? Why is the table rectangular and not square? We teach them square and rectangle, but we do not tell them, or they do not ask you questions, or we do not trigger their imagination. Why a table is not a square? Tell me, why a table is not a square? And why almost a rectangle? Rectangle. Why is it not a square? Rarely you will find a square table. Very rare. Why? Simple, right? But are we thinking in those lines? Are we triggering the imagination of the child to think in those lines? Why are we limiting ourselves to that compartments? Geometry, math, science. Now, because I triggered a question, imagination just a question ago, now you have more answers. Simple, right? I'm just triggering you. Now, this is what I'm talking about when you go to a classroom, triggering these questions from a child, and you be open to admit that I don't know the answer. The biggest problem with a traditional teacher is, and the way our Indian system, education system is, we feel that teacher is God. Correct, right? Our Vedas tell us, Guru Devo Bhava. So, a teacher cannot say, I do not know in a class. So, you have that fear of the unknown. The child has a lot of respect, the parents have a lot of respect, so teacher cannot say that I do not know. So, what happens is, there is an underlying fear. So what do? I remain in the boundaries of what I know. I do not explore the boundaries beyond what I do not know. So I'm limiting my questioning, I'm limiting my exploration of a particular subject to what I know. So unless and until I master a skill, I would not teach it. Now do you think Elon Musk had to master rocket science to build a rocket? Does he, by the way, know anything of rocket science? Does he have that knowledge to beat NASA? Yet he beat him, right? Why is that happening? Because he's a risk taker. He simply takes risks. He says, if I fail quicker, I'll be able to build faster. This is where the world is heading today. Fail quick, build fast. Are we equipping our child, or are we equipped to think in those lines? The child will automatically think, are we, the TFGs or the teachers or the ones who are going to this classroom to teach a child, equipped with this thought process, which this century demands from us? Right? So I had shown this shape. Now, what I am asking here is, it's a very important point that I am trying to make here is, the child has seen this shape in the maths class. You also have shown this shape. Maybe imagine you are coding class. They have seen these shapes. Now, is he able to relate a pentagon to an hexagon? Is he able to transfer the same knowledge that the child has? Teacher never taught hexagon maybe in the class. Teacher taught only pentagon. But now can he correlate the learning from pentagon into hexagon? That how many number of sides are there? So should I divide the same? Should I use the same formula? What are the number of sides? So you know what this term is called? It's called as transfer of learning. Okay? If this transfer is happening, let me put an example. You must be experts in a lot of fields individually. Some of you must have done some programming or a coding language. Everybody has certain skill, or you might be a very good singer. Right? Now, suddenly there's an opportunity for you to become a teacher. And that skill you're supposed to teach, maybe your brother or your friend or somebody. Do you think you can transfer that skill which you have inherently in you to that individual effectively? Have you done this at home? Maybe you have a sibling, you have to teach them something. Have you tried this? Maybe a spouse. I remember teaching my wife to drive. It was so painful for me to teach her to drive. So have you tried this? Are we competent to transfer learning? And what is that competency? That's what you're going to do right now, from next month onwards. You're getting into this space of enhancing learning in that child. And we ourselves, in our families, in our social surroundings, in our offices, have found this challenging to transfer what I know into somebody else. Now what is that? How can I now make the child competent to find the same thing here, what I taught here? For example, what I'm saying is, you had a lesson plan which was supposed to teach them how to code a pentagon. In the exam, the question was, draw an hexagon. Have you empowered the child to now create a hexagon on his own when you are not taught it? You are taught. That's what exams do as well. Supposed to do, but now exams also not doing it because you are bigger than exams. That's what exams do. They check for your transferability, whether what you have learned, what was taught in the class, you are able to apply to slightly different field or slightly different topic. That's transfer. It's also called as competence. Do we have transferred competence to a child? Because learning is very easy. Teaching is the most, everybody is doing teaching right now. Every school, every teacher is doing teaching. Is teaching learning? Is our job only to teach? Right? Fundamental question, right? So now you are coming into a role which you hated what the teachers did 15 years ago. You are sad about it. You are sad about the fact that that math teacher, that geography teacher was a hell. He did not teach us well, he did not know how to speak, used to mumble. So all those complaints, you just go back into your memory lane. You will find out how the teachers taught you, and you learned nothing from that teaching experience. You only learned in the job. When the challenge was thrown at you, you asked your friends, you went to Google, you went to YouTube, you figured out a way and you learned things. That's how you learn most of the things now in your job life, in your current life. So what is that learning that you need to now do it in your schools? So, I have a question for you. We all are talking. I think they already told you to install Linux on your computers. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, why do you think we are telling you this? I think the most obvious question is free. Do you think government doesn't have money to be giving you free, talk about free? Is that what it is? So why do you think? Require less specification, okay. No, I'm talking about in general, if you're seeing worldwide, any professional user, anyone can use it? Is that you don't have to pay for it, obviously, Korea. Is that simple? Do you think the world doesn't have money, America doesn't have money? Open source, what difference does it make? Why does a professional billion-dollar company like Facebook or Twitter, who has billions of dollars in them, who has the best engineers, rely on Linux and not on Windows?
It's more secure.
More secure? Okay.
They can modify.
They can modify. Anything else? Now, let's keep this question. Let's go to this thing now. Okay, you all have this at home. We all have laptops, computers. Some years ago, I do not know even if you have seen a computer. At least in my childhood, I have seen a typewriter. Now tell me the difference between these two. Multitasking, okay.
It's faster.
It has a user interface.
So if there's a mistake while typing using
Okay.
typewriter,
Okay, it has a mistake, you can know the mistake. Anything else?
It's noisy.
Okay. Now, bear the hat of an engineer. You have given me layman's answer. As an engineer, what do you think the difference is? Virus can attack, okay. Memory, okay. 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 So coming to technical, okay. I think I will need to wear another hat. What do you think it adds to your life? If this was in your life or this was in your life, what does it add to your life? Flexibility. Do you think there is a glorified typewriter? Like, it has a lot of bells and whistles, you know, a lot of add-ons to the typewriter. That's what it is? That's how you use this laptop at home? Means if the typewriter had all the features of save, you know, formatting or retracting, it would have served your purpose. Or is it doing more than that? Is it supposed to do more than that? And what is that? So the same, this question and the earlier question of why Linux is something related to. Think over this. I'm not going to give an answer. Think over this. Why am I raising these points? So let me come to the last point of mine. While doing all this, solving these questions, you are here. I put this first line. What do this first line is trying to tell you? This first picture. Support. Collaborate. Okay. What else?
Balance.
Comforting. It is all this. I'll give a small 2 minutes. There's a small story to this. You all have used credit cards. Credit cards are used worldwide, and now UPI has come. Correct? Do you see a difference? Pre-UPI and post-UPI. What happened? Transactions zoom. Everywhere you find UPI. A vegetable vendor has a UPI. Everybody has a UPI. The story is the same. Credit cards were there before. I mean all cards. Credit, debit, all cards put together and post-UPI. What suddenly changed? Everybody has cell phones, so what was the problem statement here? You have to carry a card to pay or you have to carry a cash to pay. Correct? Now UPI has changed all that. So do you see that here? See, there is a problem in the market. The problem is carrying money or carrying cards. Now, by the way, this is called as empathy. the right word for this empathy. Empathy does not mean caring. It means beyond that. It means I am able to relate to your problem. Okay? So that is what UPI did. It's a very classical story, classical example of empathy. It's not emotional, by the way. Empathy is not emotion. Empathy is practical. If UPI had empathy in the problem, solving the problem of the common man, of not being able to carry a cash or a card, that's a perfect example of empathy. Nobody will give this example to you. Of empathy. That's a very practical example of empathy. In a very business sense. So do we have this kind of empathy? And the second point, what do you think is? Values, ethics, right? So there is a framework for all of us to be in that framework, to be in that boundaries of personal values or morals and the organizational ethics, right? You have your personal values. You must be having your personal values in terms of morals, in terms of how you behave, how honest you are. And the organization, that is PMU or the Goa government, dictates to you certain ethics, or the school dictates to certain ethics. So are we aware about this person? Are we syncing our values, our morals with the organizational ethics? Because what we are will translate to what a child will look into. Right? A child cannot be told speak truth. If you tell, the child will never do. You must have been your parents' children. So the parent, even if they told you to behave honestly, you would not do it just because the parent told you. You would be observing your parents. It's by action. Right? All values, all empathies are by action, not by telling. These virtues are not by telling. Both of these are by action. So for action, are you understanding them? Right? So I have just given you one slide which talks about all of this. This is what I talked about. These 8 points. These are what I feel, what matters for you in the next 5 days to ponder over. Think over this. Maybe by the end of 5 days or maybe end of 1 month, you will have more questions evolving into this. You will try to answers. Okay? Hope I have triggered your imagination to think about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saieesh sir, for this session. It was full of problems. Well, I'm in Little Association with Saieesh sir since last year. Okay, I have realized one thing. Sir would pose different kinds of questions. He would never give you solutions because he doesn't want us to constrain our thinking or confine to certain boundaries. Okay, so I seriously feel like you need to answer these questions for yourself. Maybe not over here. Go back and think about these questions. Okay, and the whole idea is not to put you in a problematic situation. It's only to give you a way to think about certain things a bit differently. Right? So there is this book you can read. Heard of this? There is Shiv Kera. He says this nice thing. Any idea? You need not do different things. You need to only think differently. So that's what Saieesh says.
What about next week credits to Anay Kamal sir? He is the one who created our curriculum. So this presentation is based on inputs from him. So that's what we have learned. I have learned in the past one. But there will be credits to one whom you borrow your ideas from.
Thank you so much.